What is happening, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC, and I'm your humble host, Niko House. We have some breaking news. This article dropped 13 hours ago. I've been seeing it. I've been seeing the claim circulating around the internet for like the last 24 hours. But this article, this is a Fox News article, but the original claim was made in Axios. This article is confirming that AOC may be challenging Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand in the upcoming Senate races. I'm not really all that surprised by that, but let's go ahead and take a look at the article and see what it had to say. Let me zoom in so y'all can see it. The article says Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, could be facing a major challenger in their next Senate races. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Top Democrats suspect that the freshman congresswoman will primary either Schumer in 2022 or Gillibrand in 2024, according to a report from Axios. Gillibrand, who is currently running for president, just won re-election during the 2018 midterms after vowing she would serve her full 6-year term. If AOC runs against the two-party powerhouses, I don't think Kirsten Gillibrand would be considered a powerhouse, but okay, and wins, it wouldn't be the first time she toppled a big-name Democrat after she defeated the leading lawmaker Joe Crowley, who was the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, a member of Congress for nearly 20 years during the New York primaries in 2018. You all remember Joe Crowley in every way stacked the deck against AOC. It was almost like a walk-off home run. He even somehow managed to secure the endorsement of the Working Families Party over AOC, which was really weird. That seemed like, which the Working Family Party has been guilty of in the past, but it seemed more like pragmatic to them, just so they can claim that they got a victory, because it helps with their fundraising, right? But it's bitten them in the ass before trying to do that, because I believe it was with either Cuomo or de Blasio, if not both, that they had endorsed them in the past for pragmatism, to say that they got a victory, that they helped bolster a candidate. And then obviously both de Blasio and Cuomo let them down in multiple ways. But generally the Working Families Party is pretty progressive, which is why I found it interesting that they had endorsed Crowley so early on. But also, remember, there was a huge controversy about Ro Khanna endorsing Crowley, claiming that he had no idea that AOC was running, which I know for a fact is actually untrue. He did know AOC was running. AOC, at least her campaign, I should say, the information I got was that she personally reached out to Ro Khanna, and she was given a flat out no, because of him. He had worked with Joe Crowley in the past on some legislation. Joe Crowley backed him up, basically, and so that was his way of repaying the favor. But like, most people probably guessed, as well as myself, I felt like that was just a cop out. To pretend like you didn't know who he was running against, in my opinion, is laughable, because why would you endorse him if so early on, by the way, if he wasn't running against anybody? Like, he wouldn't even need your endorsement. Secondly, Ro Khanna is a Justice Democrat, and AOC is a Justice Democrat. They both supposedly don't take any corporate money. I don't know. Ro Khanna's situation was a little bit more obscure than that. But Joe Crowley takes corporate money. That should have probably been the clue to not endorse. But that's what happened. So she did have the deck stacked against her. The people did come to her aid, and eventually she was able to gain the endorsements of the Working Families Party and Ro Khanna in a co-endorsement situation. And so, yeah, this wouldn't, if she did go up against Chuck Schumer and then she did go up against Kirsten Gillibrand, it would be a difficult race for Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer to get out of. But I do want to make it very clear that Senate races are different. They are different. Okay? There's a reason that Rand Paul had to become a Republican just to be a libertarian in the Senate. There's a reason that Bernie had to take a lot of different steps before he could even be competitive for the Senate seat. And even then, it's more of a factor of Vermont just being a very unique state demographically that benefited Bernie. But you're not going to find a lot of Bernie Sanders on the left and a lot of Rand Pauls on the right, because big money runs Senate races in important states. And of course, New York is one of those very, very important states. So since then, Ocasio-Cortez has become a household name and is leading the effort promoting the Green New Deal in hopes of tackling climate change. With massive support among progressives, the New York representative is seen as a kingmaker during the 2020 election and is weighing her options on who to back in the presidential race. I want to be very clear about something. AOC is not a kingmaker in the 2020 elections. And I'll explain why in a second. Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have so far received the highest praise from the self-described Democratic Socialists. She's repeatedly blasted former Vice President Joe Biden, most recently for his previous support of the Hyde Amendment, which outlaws federal funding for abortions. If your pride is being a moderate centrist candidate, then say that. Ocasio said last week, say, I'm proud to be a centrist. I'm proud to be funded by Wall Street. I'm proud to not push as hard as I can on women's rights. Say it, own it, be it. But don't come out here and say you're a progressive candidate, but at the same time, not support repealing something as basic as the Hyde Amendment. So, let me just say that I do believe that AOC would be a much improved senator of New York City, or New York State, I should say. She, at the bare minimum, I know will push for progressive policies. At the bare minimum, I know she will always vote where progressives generally tell her to vote on particular amendments. She could be a huge asset to a progressive president if we end up getting a progressive president, or I should say when. She could even potentially break the mold. Obviously, Bernie Sanders broke the mold by not taking corporate donations in the Senate race in Vermont, but like I said, New York State is different. However, AOC does have the potential to break that mold once again and win a Senate race in a very large state where she knows, once again, the odds will be stacked against her. But I do want to, so as great as she would be as a senator, or as good as she would be, I should say, I'm not really, I don't know. I can't really be as excited about it as I want to be, I guess. And because this seems to really reinforce the theory that I had come up with a while back as to why all of a sudden, like I said, she campaigned on the OFF Act from Tulsi Gabbard. She campaigned on being, a ferocious fighter of climate change. But the Green New Deal, it doesn't ban fracking. The Green New Deal doesn't take us off of fossil fuels. The Green New Deal does not address nuclear waste. And I understand the Green New Deal is a resolution, but AOC's silence on the OFF Act, even though she campaigned on the OFF Act, has been a little worrisome. Okay? If it was just a silence on the OFF Act, I wouldn't be as worried. But then she talks about gerrymandering and things like that. But Tulsi Gabbard has introduced the Securing America's Elections Act to deal with election integrity. Hasn't really said much about it. Actually, nothing at all. In fact, she has completely and totally ignored Tulsi Gabbard's candidacy while propping up Elizabeth Warren simultaneously, which is why this worries me a little bit. If I was in New York, I'd vote for her. But it seems to be giving credence to the idea that she is trying to climb the ladder, and because certain candidates with certain legislation may stand in her way of becoming the first woman president, the first woman of color, because that's what Tulsi would knock down the mold in 3 different ways all at once. Well, 4, I guess. She's active duty National Guard. She would be the first woman president. She would be the first woman of color. She would be the first Hindu. She would actually be the first president that basically does not practice the Abrahamic religions. And I think unquestionably so, if her presidency is going to resemble in any capacity what she has ran on, what she is shown to be, she would be the best president in history. And so that's the only thing that kind of bothers me about this Senate race, is because, like, I've seen that she's willing to work with centrists. Not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing because you have to get things done. I've seen that she's been willing to work with Bernie. I've seen that she's been willing to work with Roe, more or less. But when you're a senator, you have to be willing to speak out. Being quiet on Venezuela, unacceptable as a senator. Right? There's only a couple of hundred. There's only not a couple of hundred. 100 votes in the Senate? Something to that extent. I'm off a little bit, but you get my point. You can't be, if you're easily persuaded in the Senate, your vote means much more there than it does in the House. You can't be silent on Venezuela. You can't be silent on launching rockets into Syria based off of no evidence, right? You can't prop up legislation like the legislation we saw from Kirsten Gillibrand, Zach Levin, or is it Mike Levin? I think it's Zach Levin from California, where they're talking about converting all cars to electricity. The problem is those fuel cells require fracking to fill, right? So once again, that legislation props up the idea that it's okay to damage the environment to achieve alternative energy when we should not be. No. Because the OFF Act addresses all this. So, like, those things bother me when you're working with centrists who are pretending to be progressives. Bernie, who is a progressive, okay, nothing wrong with that. Roe, I don't know if you consider him a progressive or what. Roe's, like I said, y'all know how I feel about Roe. I don't have a lot of hate in my heart for Roe, but he's the first progressive careerist. And then you're completely silent when there is revolutionary legislation put out in front of you that you ran on. Once again, she ran on the OFF Act. Maybe she didn't run on it. Maybe she wasn't on the climate change committee. But, like, I got confirmation that she absolutely knows that the OFF Act is about to be reintroduced. She knows that it was introduced in 2017 because she ran. Like I said, she talked about it in her campaign. That's the only thing that would bother me. I think that overall, beating Chuck Schumer with the progressive is would be, whoo, Lord Jesus, get him out. Get him out, please. Hell, Kirsten Gillibrand. She's not as influential as Chuck Schumer, but I would like to see either of them out. And I think AOC has the capability to do that, and I hope that she's successful in the venture. I think that hopefully over time she will begin to mature as far as her perception of progressivism and perception of her allies. I hope that she becomes a little bit more selfless in her resolve, and becomes a little bit more focused on the larger goal of achieving, our progressive platforms. That's the only thing I would like to see. And as long as she endorses the right person, and I want to be very clear about that, she's not the kingmaker of 2020. That's not how endorsements work anymore. If AOC endorses anyone but Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard, anybody, I don't give a damn if it's Elizabeth Warren, you might actually see an all-out blitzkrieg. Like, potentially, there's potential. If AOC endorses Warren, you might actually see Warren hurt by that endorsement. Because a lot of people's sentiment is that Warren is their number 2. Shouldn't be that way, but it is. More than what we should be comfortable with. But if AOC endorses her over Bernie, that isn't going to jump her past Bernie Sanders. It's going to piss off people. It's going to plummet Warren. Right? You can't, as a progressive, as a Justice Democrat, as someone who does not take corporate money, you cannot endorse a candidate who is guaranteed to take corporate money. So, like, she's not a kingmaker, but she does have an opportunity, a very unique one, to solidify what people believe about her. She says she's a progressive. Most people believe she's a progressive. And they believe she'll make the best decision. You know, she may make mistakes, but most people believe that she'll get it right when you know, the rubber meets the road. This is that opportunity. Don't pull a Warren and wait till the day before the New York primary to make your endorsement. People will remember that. Don't pull a Warren and wait until later on in the primary in general. People will remember. And for the love of God, don't pull a Warren and endorse Warren. Because it would obliterate your anything. If you thought, you have to remember, people. Yeah, AOC, that's your home state, but New York is Bernie town. And that rural area in upstate New York is absolutely Bernie town. There is no winning the Senate without Bernie Sanders. So I would say that this is actually a great thing if she is going to run for Senate, because if her advisor is intelligent, which is questionable, that guy is interesting, but if he has common sense, you don't piss off upstate New York by endorsing Warren over Bernie. If you will lose your Senate race if you do that. And I think she's cognizant of this. And if she does have the goal of being senator, it's likely that she has been a little bit politically calculating. The best calculation would be to endorse Bernie Sanders, because you're going to need him if you want to win that Senate seat. And you're going to need him as president if you want to beat Chuck Schumer. But it looks like I said, that she is prepping to run for president when she is old enough. That's what it looks like. Now, of course, because of that, I will be, like I said, when she does something to celebrate, something worth celebrating. And this is something worth celebrating. But I think that we should keep everything in context. I think now it's becoming more and more apparent that she's trying to climb the ladder. She hasn't really achieved much. The Green New Deal isn't even complete, nor has it been passed. She hasn't addressed any of the legitimate critiques about the Green New Deal, nor has she addressed why she hasn't invited the number one person in climate change in Congress to stomp with her, like she's invited Elizabeth Warren, like she's invited Bernie Sanders. It's not about Tulsi Gabbard as much as it is about, you have somebody who's introduced legislation, complete legislation, that is endorsed by 400 climate change and environmental groups, something that your Green New Deal cannot say. So as a progressive, objectively, we have to figure out why that is. People all say, well, we got to question Tulsi on this. This is a concern for me. It's a concern. It's just a concern. You know, the concern trolls. This is a concern. 400 environmental and climate change groups. The Green New Deal does not have that. The Off Act does. So why are we not talking about it? So, but like I said, overall, good news. Hope she wins. Hope she does it. Hope she beats the shit out of Chuck Schumer. I would rather her go after Chuck Schumer than Kirsten Gillibrand. Chuck Schumer needs to go. We need to retire that man. Okay? He needs to go. So, I'd love to know what your thoughts are about this. Leave your thoughts in your comments below. Make sure that you donate to our Patreon. Help keep the show growing. I had an interesting encounter with YouTube earlier today. They told me somebody had told them I was posting spam videos on a channel that's all original content with my commentary. So they're probably going to try to shut me down at some point. So, hey, keep the show alive. Go to YouTube or go to Patreon, donate. It's in the link in the description below, but you can also go to www.patreon.com/MikasaSukasa and donate there with as little as $1. With that being said, people, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.